A special welcome to the session of Windows Mobile Device Management. I thank you all for making the time to come to Microsoft Ignite, Microsoft Envision, and also show up for this session. Seems like a great turnover. I'm hoping for the next 75 minutes I can make this session worthy of your time and provide some insights that you can take back to your work after the conference and apply. My name is Hina Makwan, and I'm a senior program manager lead in the device management platform team. And here I am today representing the work of a bunch of teams at Microsoft that strive very hard to make modern management of Windows devices possible. So when I mean platform manageability of Windows, I really mean OS manageability. There are a bunch of other sessions here happening at Ignite that talk about all the other parts of modern manageability and modern management. And I'm certainly not going to cover all of those parts. I'm going to focus on key parts that map to platform capabilities. But I do have a phenomenal reference slide at the end of my presentation that you can use for any sessions that are relevant from the past that you can go view the recording of, or you can go attend in the future while you're here at the conference. So let's talk about OS manageability. And the key question that we get from most of our customers, in fact, all of our customers, is whether OS is ready to be managed fully by MDM, by a cloud solution. And I'm going to cut to the chase, and I'm going to say, nope, it's not ready. The key question to ask is really, are your scenarios and is your environment ready to move to modern management? And that is where I want to spend most of your time. Because we can always argue about whether the modern OS platform is complete with all the management capabilities that existed in the past, or if the modern management capabilities are sufficient for the needs of your environment. So to hone on that point a little bit, I'm going to provide some qualitative as well as quantitative data. And then we can talk about what are some of the platform improvements we've made towards achieving that goal, and how you can go about executing those scenarios in your environment to truly validate if you're ready or not. So that's really the presentation, or the goal of the presentation in a nutshell. Numbers. We all love numbers, right? All engineering minds love numbers. They help us understand the landscape of things. They help us understand what our end goal with respect to this journey is. They help us gauge where we are at with our journey to move to modern management, or to use the benefits of modern management where we are. What these numbers really represent today is platform readiness by GP parity. Again, I want to address this question head on because that is the #1 question we get from most of our customers. How compatible are we with our GP equivalent, with our GP cousins? GP was a great tool for management of Windows devices in the traditional world. And how close are we with a full parity in the modern world? We took some telemetry data by collecting through telemetry. We've collected some data of around 7,000 customers. That has been very quantitative, as well as we've collected qualitative data through the MMAT tool that some of you might be familiar with, and we'll talk more about that tool later. And we've also spoken to a lot of customers. We've spoken to customers in the CDAC forum. We've spoken to customers that are part of the technical adoption program. We also have engaged heavily with customers through the MVP channels and so on. And what we've collected so far is some sort of quantitative measurement of how much of gap exists today with respect to the real GPs that are being applied in your environment. And that data, what it revealed to us is that about 17% customers today are using GPs where there is 100% parity with MDM capabilities. What that means is there are about 17% customers out there who are ready to adopt modern management as a way to set their GP policies for the OS. Who in this room thinks that they are in that category? OK, that's good. Non-zero hands, so that's good. The other data point that we came across was There are about 28% customers that are heavily relying on IE browser manageability, and they don't have any other dependency, they don't have any other gaps. And while we're working on bridging the IE browser manageability scenarios, we are also urging customers to think about how can they move their browser technology to edge, and how can they streamline, and how can they minimize the manageability overhead that comes with IE management as well. So if we had about these 28% customers adopt edge, we would have more percentage of customers fully ready from their GP footprint, not from what the platform supports, but from their own GP requirement perspective to move to the cloud. Then we found out that another 28% of the customers have a gap where the gap is very, very small. It's few settings for a lot of customers, or some customers have about 10 to 15 settings that don't map to the MDM equivalent. So that gap is really small, and that gap is something where we think there is the largest value in us learning from you. We want to understand from you which are those settings that really matter to you. We want to understand which settings you can even let go and not worry about in the modern world. But that is the area where we need to partner with you and understand, is there anything meaningful for us that can impact the larger ecosystem? Is there anything that we can take and add to the platform? Or is there anything that you can change in your environment so that you don't have a dependency on those GPs going forward? And last but not the least, there are about 27% customers that still have a larger footprint of GP, and again, that's a tail end. The way I want you to think about this is that we have tried to address the GP MDM parity problem for majority of the cases and for majority of the scenarios. It's really up to you now to evaluate and see if your scenarios are being addressed by these new capabilities, or if there are true gaps that we need to come in and help address. How many folks here think that they are on the far right of the spectrum? Any show of hands? Okay, great. So you're the people who are going to talk to me after this session or after this session in the near future. So with that, keeping this in mind, I also wanted to highlight the key principles behind why we've tried to keep manageability really at its bare minimum footprint. We think that GP has a lot of legacy, and again, this is something we've heard from the customers. There are tons and tons of GP in your environment. There are multiple IT administrators that have managed your environments over the course of multiple decades, and there is so much data in there that you're actually scared to touch. So we're really trying to be very mindful of which are the key scenarios and which are the key settings that really matter to your environment, and providing support for only those settings in MDM. And believe it or not, we've debated whether we should just open up the floodgates or not. I'm going to be honest with you. But it just did not strike with the core principle of MDM, which is reduced cost of ownership, which is reduced manageability overhead, seamless and simple operationalization of your IT administrator policies, which is why we've stuck to the principle that we had before, but we really need your help to now bridge that remaining 27 or 40% gap that we think there might exist. So, like I said, we all love numbers. We are all engineers. This is a good way for us to think about, are we ready to move to MDM or are we not? But I would strongly encourage you to also think about it from a scenario standpoint. And by scenarios, I really mean platform readiness from certain core things that most organizations care about. One of the first asks that most of the on-prem customers and even only cloud customers gave us was, hey, as soon as a device connects to a network, I want to make sure that the device is secure. Can you give me a set of principles? Can you give me a set of policies that I can apply right away and ensure that my devices are secure? Then, as the next step, I'll go figure out if I want to tweak those settings, if I want to add more settings, if I want to enable certain scenarios that are not enabled in my environment, but security is of paramount importance. So we took that feedback, and we've prioritized our list on how we want to address the platform capabilities. And this list is not all-encompassing. It is only a shorter list, a preview into what's coming in the platform. But this is an important list. So I really want you to understand how we've helped build security baseline from a platform standpoint, how we've helped with the S-mode unlocking policies, and how that plays with your security story. There are some privacy-related policies as well that we've introduced in RS4 and RS5. And then there are policies that address the need of certain scenarios like kiosk management, and there are some other improvements that we'll go through. So really, again, the framework that I want you to have for the rest of this presentation is, yes, there is a gap between modern and traditional. And the gap is being bridged, but it is being looked at more from a qualitative perspective, less from a quantitative perspective. And how is my organization going to benefit with what is in the platform today? Because what you're going to hear in the next few slides is also an announcement that Brad Anderson made in his keynote, is that we have a solid security story when it comes to platform capabilities for managing devices. So to see how all of these scenarios fit in the bigger picture, let's zoom out a level. So again, most of you are here because you work in the IT organizations of your companies. You care about managing devices, ensuring that they're secure, ensuring that the productivity apps are on the devices in a timely manner. The end user experience is not compromised. The end user is very happy with what they see and what they don't see on the device. And that is really your bread and butter. So the core principles of manageability tie around productivity, simplicity, and security. And we've tried to encompass this core principle, which is our value prop for M365, M365 promise for management and other promises we have. We've also tried to incorporate these same principles, this same cycle of endpoint protection in the platform itself. So this is no different than what you've been hearing in the past sessions and in the keynotes. This is just one component of the bigger picture that we're going to dive deeper into. So let's get on the same page with the reality of today. We did see a show of hands for some people who think are ready for the cloud. We did see a show of hands for some people who said they're not quite ready for the cloud. They may still have gaps. So let's all just say it out loud that we live in this world where two parallel worlds exist together. There is the classic workplace, where you have your on-premises infrastructure. You have the tools that you've been using for, again, decades, if not years. And those tools just work. They give you what you need. They are very reliable. You're used to using them, and they just work, and it's great. On the other hand, we have the modern workspace, where Microsoft is innovating, where customers are pushing us to innovate, where the customers are pushing us to innovate further and further and help meet the needs of the modern workforce. Modern workforce is typically described as a workforce that wants to connect from anywhere and from any device. They want to be connected at all times and have access to their corporate data on whichever device they like. Between these two worlds, there is this phase of digital transformation that needs to happen, both for the end user as well as the IT administrator and the IT infrastructure, to ensure that, again, the promises of simplicity, security, and protection are met at all times. So our message to you really is that we don't expect you to just lift and shift, or rip and replace what has been working for you for decades and what has been providing you a lot of value, like your domain join scenarios or any scenarios that you're managing through SCCM. We don't want you to just abandon them and start figuring out how to use cloud solutions. We want to meet you where you're at, and we want to be able to provide value that comes out of cloud services in a way that works best with your on-premises tools. So we want to be able to provide you value through the cloud-attached promise of M365. And the core components that my team and the teams around me deliver for platform capabilities try to address that promise as well. So how many of you from here were at Brad Anderson's keynote a few days ago? OK, quite a lot of you. So there are a couple slides that I've taken from his presentation just to, again, hone on the point that we want to allow you to use the technology of your choice for the scenarios that you care about and to the benefit of your enterprise. With that, this is a high-level view of how you should think about cloud-attached services benefiting your environment if you have your infrastructure on premises. There are certain technologies that you would have to fully transform from their on-premises counterpart to the cloud counterpart. But when it comes to Active Directory and manageability of the device, which sort of go hand in hand, we, again, don't expect you to just lift and shift. We want you to connect these cloud services to your on-premises services and your on-premises products in a way where you can get added benefit of these cloud-driven scenarios. And we'll talk about what those cloud-driven scenarios are in a minute in your environment. So again, to hone on how you should be thinking about the ability for your on-premises components to connect to the cloud, let's put some block diagrams here as reference. This is the most simplistic way for me to represent what an all-cloud managed device would look. You have a modern PC, it's Windows 10 and plus, Windows 10, any of the versions, and you connect this PC to Active Directory in Azure, and you connect it to an MDM service provider like Intune. And all you need is policies that your corporation cares about, and you can manage these devices in an effective way. Now, again, not many of you here belong to this category, and we understand. But there are still a lot of companies out there that are at the bleeding edge of technology that are trying to go all cloud from the inception, who can really benefit from this sort of an architecture. So this is a valid architecture. On the flip side, we have the on-premises manageability aspect only, where you have your Windows 7 devices, and hopefully all migrating to Windows 10 now, all managed by on-prem AD and configuration manager tools or by domain controller tools like GPs. Think of Cloud Attach as the classic co-managed state that you're familiar with, where a given device is both managed by SCCM and on-prem tools and on-prem AD, and it is also connected to Azure AD and is managed by Intune as well. So this is like the classic diagram to keep in mind when you think of co-management. Now you might ask, how do I get my devices into co-management? Again, I have a simplistic description of how you can get devices into co-management. There is a lot of detail that you can learn by going to specific sessions that are related to this journey, and I'm going to point you to those sessions in a minute. But essentially, when you have a brand new device, like a Windows 10 device, your environment, you have users that are going through some hardware refresh cycles. You can just buy them the new Windows 10 device. And these new Windows 10 devices, using the Autopilot service, can directly connect to Azure Active Directory and can be managed via a cloud service like Intune. Then you can choose to have these devices at the time of enrolling into Intune also enroll into hybrid AAD, which we call as DJ++ internally, and install the configuration management agent on the device. Once you do this, your device is quickly co-managed by two services, and you can start using the cloud-driven services and start getting the benefits of cloud services on this device right away. For existing devices that are on-prem and are managed by domain controller or SCCM, we do have a path that leads to, again, the same co-managed state, which is that device can now be hybrid AAD joined through DJ++ and also managed by Intune at the same time. So you don't have to be in this split world where you have part of your devices that are managed by on-prem tools and part of your devices managed by cloud. And then you have to worry about which scenarios work on which devices and how are you going to measure compliance and how are you going to set the security policies. You don't have to be in that business at all. If you think you're the right candidate to be where you are with your on-prem tools and yet want to take advantage of the cloud management is for you. Now you might wonder, what are the key pieces I need to achieve co-management? So this slide helps describe what are the core components and which version of the services or the core components are needed for you to enable co-management in your environment. So for Azure Active Directory, you need to set up hybrid Azure AD, license users for Azure AD, enable Windows 10 auto-enrollment, which is already supported in public. So none of these pieces are coming. This is all available today for you to go try out. Configuration Manager 1710 Plus can support co-management. You need to onboard onto AAD, and you need to set up some internet-facing clients in certain cases. It's optional. It's only optional for bootstrapping devices with the configuration management agent. This is a scenario which corresponds to the new devices coming into co-management. And then for Intune, you really need to migrate your users from your on-premises infrastructure to the cloud. That way there is a cloud identity for the users, and get Intune users, and get these users an Intune license. And once you have a Windows 10 1709 plus client, you can co-manage. So again, none of this is new. This is a story we painted 10 years ago, a year ago. A year ago, and co-management is not new. The part that I want to highlight is new is that co-management can be your state of choice for the long term. It does not have to be a transition state. It does not have to be a state where you're going to step in for a few months or a few years till you figure out your journey all the way to the cloud. It can be your state where your devices last for a longer term, because you're totally happy with the benefits you get of the on-prem tools, while you're totally happy with the benefits you get with the cloud services. So how many folks here think they're ready for co-management? OK, that's promising. So these are some of the benefits that you get with the power of the cloud, specifically for M365. And you can learn more about this in a session that's later this afternoon. The session is going to be conducted by my colleagues Tristan Scott and Heidi Chen from SECM and Intune team. But this is just a precursor of what are some of the values that you can directly get with Cloud Attach. There is unified endpoint management that you can get in addition to all the top level items are stuff that you can get with your on-premises technology, which you're all familiar with. And then as an add-on, you can get the unified endpoint management. And by unified, we really mean a single pane of glass management across different platforms that you care about, not just Windows, but even iOS and Android. Then you get access to using certain modern security principles like device compliance and conditional access. Conditional access has been a very, very successful story and has resonated with many customers from different sectors, from fintech to manufacturing to retail. A lot of sectors have really loved the promise of conditional access and have enabled conditional access in M365. And modern management can give access to can give you the value of conditional access by connecting modern services to your on-prem infrastructure and not changing anything on the on-prem side. Then there is modern provisioning that you can take advantage of, which is Autopilot. And there is a dedicated session for Autopilot as well that happened yesterday, I believe. So if you've missed it, I strongly encourage you to go see the recording of that session. Then there is modern security, like Hello for Business, attestation, health attestation, and then integration with ATP services that can further bolster the security of your devices in your environment and can give you a lot of insights based on all the data that's collected in the cloud and all the analytics on the data that runs in the cloud through these services. Then there is the modern policy, which is what we will focus on in the next few slides, security baseline, guided deployments, and so on. There's modern app management that you can benefit from by attaching a cloud service. And full M365 integration, which is a full stack of services that can help protect your environment, make it simple for you to manage, and deliver on the promise of productivity. So let's jump into MDM security baselines. So how many people here, again, show of hands. Sorry, I'm making you do a lot of exercise. But show of hands on how many people use security baselines for their GPs today. Great. This was the starting point for a lot of security-related conversations that happened on our side in Microsoft when it came to OS capabilities for management. When we spoke about, hey, Windows 10 is ready to be managed through MDM, the first question we got asked from our customers was, do you have a security baseline? Do you have a template that you would recommend that I can just, with few simple clicks, use in my environment and deploy these settings with ease and ensure that my devices are secure? All thanks to the GP-based security baselines that we've been publishing over multiple years. Everyone familiar with this web page? This is a blog post that gets released with every OS update that provides a set of GPs that are relevant for your environment. And I'm going to spend some time on how these security baselines really get created. Because again, one of the asks we had from customers was, you will give me the security baseline, but how can you confidently tell me that this security baseline is going to address the security needs of my environment? How am I going to be able to go convince my security experts that the baseline Microsoft is giving is indeed a good baseline that I can use to keep my devices secure? So we listened, and we listened. We spoke to many customers. And these were like the top 5 things we heard customers say when it comes to security policies. They wanted to be easy and efficient in securing devices. Because there are tons and tons of settings, they don't want to be spending a whole lot of time figuring out all of those settings, figuring out all the recommended values for those settings. They just want a template. They want Microsoft to come out authoritatively and tell the customers, look, if you deploy this security baseline, we have the recommended values in there. You should be assured that this is secure. And if Microsoft gave them that template, the next question customers would ask us is, how do you justify that this is the complete set of security settings? How are you validating that this meets the industry standards? So I'll spend a little bit of time talking about how we go about doing that. But I want to tell you that we spend a lot of time with the security experts in-house that are not part of the product team. We call it the Microsoft Security Assurance team. And we also spend a lot of time with external experts to ensure that the security baseline meets the promise of true security. They also wanted a way, customers also wanted a way for them to be educated about how the decisions get made on what goes into the security baseline and what doesn't. And that information then can be used by them to convince their security counterparts, to convince their security experts in-house on, yes, this is the right set of security policies that we should apply through MDM. Another requirement that came up was just to monitor compliance of security. As you know, end users keep accidentally or intentionally tampering around with settings. And often the policies that the IT administrator sets doesn't hold true for a long period of time. So in addition to setting policies, IT administrators also want to know what is the drift of the policies on individual devices, and then also connect that to compliance conditional access, which can then result in consequences for that user if they are not compliant with security policies. So they want the whole meal deal with when it comes to security settings. And last but not the least, they want an easy and an intuitive way to do change management, which means while I've deployed my security policy, if there is one knob that I want to either make it more secure or less secure, I should be able to do it without affecting other policies in my environment. I should be able to do it without impacting downtime or compromising security on those devices. So we listened, and we are announcing the release of Microsoft MDM Security Baseline with RS5 for the first time. So let's talk about what goes into the creation process of this Microsoft MDM Security Baseline. Like I mentioned earlier, we work with external security experts like the Center of Internet Security, CIS, or even the National Cybersecurity Center of UK. And we try and understand what are some of the needs of security that these customers have, or the customers of these organizations have. And we bring that into the security baseline that is GP-based. We also use a lot of internal resources like the Microsoft Security Assurance. We are a big organization, and we are constantly under attack. And we have a whole dedicated unit that works actively on making sure that our networks and our devices that are connected to the network are secure. So there is a lot of in-house learning that we bring to table from that team. And then we also listen to customers. There have been customers who've reached out to us and specifically called out certain policies that are meaningful for them, that are needed for their environment, that are missing from the security baseline. So we use that as another input point. And all of that results in a Microsoft GP-based security baseline. This is the baseline that you saw on the blog post earlier. This is the baseline we've been shipping with every release, at least as far as all releases of Windows 10 have a security baseline that ships around the same time the platform ships. So we took that as our baseline. And again, with input from these channels, we've figured out the criteria of whether certain settings are applicable to the cloud world or not. Are there settings that just don't make sense when the device is connected to AEDJ or MDM? And I'm going to talk about those criteria in a second as well. But after applying those criteria, we can filter out those settings, and we've come up with the Microsoft MDM security baseline. And any settings that don't meet this criteria, they just become a part of a companion GP security baseline. And we'll talk about why the companion GP security baseline is of any significance in a few minutes. But I want you to take a moment and understand the process that goes into building these security baselines. This is a deeper dive on the criteria for excluding settings that don't apply to MDM. So in our GP-based security baseline, we have about 7.7% settings that strictly apply to domain. They are settings that apply to domain, and there is no equivalent of it in the AEDJ world. And examples of those are firewall policies that apply to domain. In the modern world, you can have firewall policies that apply to public profiles and private profiles, but there are no real domain profiles. So those policies have been dropped. Another example is enumerating users on a domain-joined machine. So these policies make no sense to have in the modern AEDJ and MDM world, and those policies have been dropped. Another criteria is of any deprecated scenarios. As management is advancing, a lot of security technologies are also advancing. For example, device lock. Device lock is being replaced by Hello for Business. It's not completely decommissioned yet, it's deprecated. We are encouraging more and more of our customers to start using Hello for Business because it has the benefit of not remembering your password. It's a convenience PIN. It has a convenience PIN support. It has a lot of benefits that come with the modern security management promises. So those scenarios are automatically taken away from the security baseline. Now, there might be MDM settings for these scenarios, but they are not part of the security baseline because we want to use the MDM security baseline as a tool to promote good behavior and as a tool that can help customers really hone on the policies that matter and not the laundry list of policies. Another good example is NTLM, LTS 2.0. These are deprecated technologies as well, or technologies that are slowly fading away. You might still be using them, but they are not highly encouraged in the modern world. Xbox game monitoring, and so on. And last but not the least, there are policies that are low usage. This line item corresponds to the last or the rightmost circle that we had in one of the previous slides. We think that it's for a closer look and some for them to make it into security baseline. So our default position is to not include them till customers yell at us included them. This is why I need them, and this is the justification. So there are some security audit policies that fall in that bucket, not all of them. And you can see the whole list published as we release the security baseline. So along with releasing the MDM security baseline like we've been doing for domain joint security baseline, we will be releasing documentation on which baselines have been dropped and why. Because that's where the most meaningful conversations between you and your security counterparts happen. So this is just a sample of what's going to go into the documentation, and this is being actively worked on by the team because we're getting ready to make this publicly available in preview and then GA in October timeframe. So if you have feedback on this, please reach out to us. We've also done the due diligence of reaching out to a few customers and vetting the feedback, vetting their feedback on the format of this and the data that this documentation is going to include. And to that effect, we have 3 customers, General Electric, Coca-Cola, and New Signature, who provided us very good feedback, and they were comfortable posting, they were comfortable letting us post these quotes in the Ignite session as well. Across the board, people were super happy with us demystifying what goes into the MDM security baseline and outlining the reasons for exclusion. So I think, check, we achieved that goal. The next thing customers asked for was the details on mapping those to MDM if there exists one, because customers might still feel the need to do device lock policies. So is there an easy way for them to discover which are those MDM policies that are not in the security baseline? That way they can go and add that in their environment if they need to. And customers are also wanting to know when will the MDM security baseline be available in the MDM tools of their choice? What we are delivering is the platform capability. And our promise is to have this platform capability integrate with any MDM of your choice. What I'm going to demonstrate today, though, is security baseline using Intune. But you can really integrate this into any tool that you use. And another feedback comment that we heard from customers was to provide justification for why things were not there, even in time. That way, when they are thinking about migrating tools, so basically getting this documentation and integrating it somehow in their tool system. So if they're thinking about migrating settings from SCCM to Intune, they have this justification in line in their SCCM tool. And that is something we are not delivering right away, but that is something we are working on. So with RS5, we will have the content fleshed out. We will have the schema and the data for you to go use with your MDM solution. What we won't have is a very seamless transition from your on-premises to cloud if that's what you choose. So you might wonder, how do you go and exercise these security baselines in your environment today? So that's what I'm going to focus on in the next few slides before we go into the demo. So remember the diagrams that we had for the different architectures? So let's go over each of those architectures and how security baseline overlays on each of them. The very first architecture we saw was cloud-only, modern Windows 10 device managed by Intune and AAD-J. On those devices, you can enable MDM security baseline directly through your MDM provider. And again, I'm going to demonstrate what this looks like using Intune. So this is straightforward. Given the data, given all the feedback we've heard, we think the security baseline is ready for you to use. We added a lot of security settings in RS3. We added a lot of security settings in RS4. So the idea of generating a security baseline was always there. But we still didn't feel we were complete in addressing the security promise. So with RS5, we added a bunch of additional security knobs in the platform. And then we decided to release a security baseline that covers all the settings. So we think, as of RS5, if you start using security baselines, you can comfortably call the devices secure in your environment. For the co-managed customers, now, they have a choice. They can continue using the GP-based security baselines just like they did. Again, we don't want to push you to change the tools if you're not comfortable changing the tools. If you think your GP security baselines are working for you, and if you think you're getting the right level of security with those, you can stick to it. But if you want more, if you want the power of the cloud to help you make more informed security policy changes, for example, if you want your environment to connect to the M365 ATP services and use the intelligence of the ATP data and apply insights from the ATP service, which is the Advanced Threat Protection Service, into your environment, then we encourage you to start using MDM security baselines. Because what that's going to give you is the ability to control the settings from Intune, and then Intune is integrating with ATP services from a service-to-service standpoint, and Intune can learn from ATP how these settings can be tweaked as we go forward. There is a deeper dive session on how this whole integration scenario works by Dilip Radhakrishnan. I believe the session was done yesterday, so you can go back and listen to the recording of that session. But essentially, if you want more out of your security baselines, we encourage you to start using MDM security baselines via the cloud. You can gain compliance reporting and conditional access through this channel and also ATP integration. And all of this you can start doing today. You can enable co-management today on your environment because all the pieces have already shipped, and you can enable MDM security baselines with RS5. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about the companion GP security baseline. So as you saw in the previous diagram, you have the GP security baselines on one side, and you have the MDM security baselines on the other side. If your security policies are consistent and they're not changing from time to time, and you're reflecting those changes, even if the security policies change, if you're reflecting those changes in both the tools, then you would expect policies coming from GP and policies coming from MDM to be similar and not conflicting with each other or not running into some sort of a race condition. But it can still happen. It can still happen that there are policies through GP that are older and you've not bothered tweaking them, and the MDM security baseline offers finer or better configurations. We've made sure that the values we've provided in both configurations are identical, but you can also change the values in MDM security baseline. So it might happen that you've set a policy that's more restrictive or less restrictive. And if that policy were to conflict with MDM security baseline, how would we handle it? So this is an unsolved problem as of today. Again, I'm going to be upfront about this. I don't want to set the wrong expectations and have you be disappointed. So the first line of action is when you set MDM security baselines alongside with GP, if the policies are identical, you're good. You will have the level of security that you need. But by any chance, if there is a conflict between the two masters of the settings, then our North Star vision is to solve that problem at the platform layer. We are working aggressively on the platform team to make sure that when multiple authorities are trying to set the same value, the platform is resolving the value to the most secure value. Or in this case, the platform is always deferring to MDM because there is an intention of the IT administrator to set the values by MDM. There are certain policies in Policy CSP, if you're familiar with the internals of the CSPs, that already honor this. But there are a bunch of other CSPs that don't honor this at the platform level, and we are aggressively working to solve that problem. But while the platform is not ready to truly make MDM win over GP, we are hoping to provide you a comprehensive report in your MDM tool to see which setting is being set by what authority. And that should demystify for you, for an environment that you are familiar with, but yet you don't know all the details. This reporting capability should help you understand where the different policies are coming from. And then that report can make it actionable for you to go into your GP infrastructure and your GP side of the world and tweak those policies so that the conflicts are resolved manually, or remove them altogether if you think MDM can just handle it. So this is our way to sort of help you start building more GP hygiene. Again, a problem that we've heard from many customers, and there aren't enough tools or manpower or time or incentive to go change that and clean the house. So we're hoping that with this scenario capability, you would be incented to go and change the GP and clean house. Now, fast forward some months or a year, and you think that all your GP footprint is gone. We really want you to be in this state. If you're in a co-managed state, you have all your modern MDM policies coming from MDM, and whatever GP policies exist on your device come through this companion GP security baseline. And that's all you would need. So we are working towards that goal. All right, with that, let's dive deep into the demo. All right. So what I have on the screen is a production tenant of Intune that has incorporated the MDM security baselines. This is the demo that if you were at Brad Anderson's keynote, you should have seen this demo. But if not, then this is a good revisit to the demo. So when you log into portal.azure.com, which is where Intune and all the AAD services exist today for the IT administrator, you can click on Intune. And on the left nav, pop up all the familiar workflows with respect to device management. There's device enrollment, compliance, configuration, and so on. And at the very top level in this left nav, we've introduced security baselines. So what that really does is helps the IT administrator quickly worry about the security baseline workload, not worry about the boatload of settings that are in device configuration. If we didn't have the security baseline settings, and those who are familiar with Intune, you would know what the experience is like. You would have to go into device configuration, instantiate device configuration profile, choose the settings that matter to you from a security standpoint, and those settings are all over the place. In fact, why don't I show it to you as to what that would look like? So you go into Intune, you go into device configuration, create profile. And in here, you would have to instantiate a device configuration profile for Windows 10 and choose device restrictions, for example. And then choose your policies from all of these various categories. And you would have to go figure out the domain knowledge of what setting contributes to the security baseline. You would have to work very closely with your security admins and go back and forth on figuring that set out. Right? There are AV settings in here as well that you would have to go configure. And then once you set all these values to a value that worked for you, you would save this profile. Then you would go back in here and create another profile for endpoint protection and include all the endpoint protection related settings in here, like application guard and smart screen and firewall filters and so on. So this became a very, very cumbersome experience for the IT pro. With security baselines, with few clicks, you can instantiate a profile that maps to all of the security settings that you would have cherry-picked from different parts of the console, and quickly deploy them with values that are already recommended by Microsoft. So this is where Intune has incorporated the draft version of the security baseline that we've given them, and they have deployed this to a bunch of devices. And what you see here is a deviation of the settings on the Windows 10 devices in this environment that differ from the security baseline. So very quickly here, you get a view of, oh, there are about 7,200 settings that map the security baseline, and there are some that don't. Now I will show you the experience of creating a security baseline. So you come in here, provide some metadata. You can call it the RS5 security baseline. Call it whatever you want. Provide some description. These are grayed out because it is locked to the version of Windows. It is locked to the release of security baseline. And that choice got made on the tile that we selected early on in the process. We have those items in there for better affinity to which release the security baseline maps to, and then also from a future versioning perspective. The versioning story has not fully been ironed out because this is the V1 of the MDM security baseline. But when we have new versions coming along, we'll iron out that as well. We want to make sure that the versioning information is incorporated in the schema so that the MDM solutions that incorporate the security baseline can easily provide versioning control and version support for the IT administrator. So all of the MDM security baselines are present here. They've been divvied up by the Intune experience into about 40-ish categories. Each category has all the settings rendered, including the default value that we've suggested using the process that I highlighted earlier. And what the Intune experience allows here is, in addition to just viewing the recommended values by Microsoft, you can also go and override the recommended values that Microsoft has given. Again, a very high demand requirement that came from customer forums, where they not only wanted the recommendations, but they also wanted the ability for an IT administrator to override. And as soon as you're done with that, you can create the security baseline and then deploy it to the target set of devices in your environment. All right, switching back to the presentation. The next scenario I want to call out, before I move to the next scenario, a few platform updates that are coming in, that have come in RS4 and are coming in RS5. And again, this is just a sneak peek. There will be more details in the online documentation and all the other material that will come out with RS5. But this is, again, just to give you a taste of what additional security settings have gone into the platform. There's user right policies. There's Defender Security Center UI controls. There are new IE settings in RS4 and RS4. There are edge manageability settings in RS4 and RS5. New security options policies. Another very interesting customer feedback was to allow BitLocker policies for standard user encryption. So this was a scenario with real customer about 2 or 3 months ago when they were trying out Autopilot, and they wanted to make sure that once the device is Autopilot enrolled into Intune, the user on the device is a standard user and not an admin user. And there was a gap in the platform where encryption for standard user would not happen. It would just fail, and the whole process would fail. So we quickly took that feedback, and the BitLocker team in the core OS team implemented policy changes and implemented the technology to support encryption for standard user. Again, something our on-prem friends are very familiar with by using on-premises tools like MBAM, but it was a gap in the modern management story, and we quickly turned around on that, and we are releasing that in RS5. We have new Defender device guard policies, new Hello for Business policies, and also additional WIP policies, Windows Information Protection policies. So there is a lot coming out in terms of enhancing the security story. And I want to underscore the fact that with security baselines, using cloud management solution, your devices should be secure. Now let's talk about Windows 10s and the manageability of the S mode on Windows 10s. So the promise that Windows in S mode had when we first released this OS was to have a very modern experience on a very modern looking device, where the experiences were primarily built to last, were built to really wow the end users. And at the same time, wanted to make sure that the device is secure, and secure by standards that Microsoft has defined. What we realized is that right off the bat, when Windows 10s was released, it might not be the platform choice for everyone. It might not be sufficient for your scenario needs in your enterprise. So we did introduce a lock, the unlocking capability of S mode, along with releasing S mode devices. The unlocking capability essentially allowed the users to switch out of S mode and get the usual Windows 10 home SKU that they like and that they're familiar with. But with experimentation of these devices with real customers, with the S mode turned on, we realized that it actually did bring a lot of value to the customers. Again, it's not all the customers. It is the customers that are really ready to use the capabilities of S mode. What we learned is that when the device is in S mode, battery life really is longer. It's longer by 15%. We also learned that the user experience is much, much better, especially when it comes to boot time. In S mode, the apps that are running in the background don't run when the device is booting, and that really minimizes the boot time. It also doesn't have support for any GP-based scripting, which is what also delays the boot time a whole lot with your on-premises style management. So that part goes away as well, and the device boots fairly fast. And the faster boot time improvements, which is an 80% better improvement number that we got, we not only saw that the first time the user booted on the device, but like the 525th time the user booted on the device. So it was a consistent performance gain that we saw on Windows 10s. We also saw that because the apps and all the drivers that are needed for the productivity of the end user and for the functionality of the OS come from the store, the device is secure. It is not exposed to malware. It is exposed only to applications and drivers that are approved by Microsoft that make it to the store. So that really helped bolster the promise and deliver on the promise of security that we had with Windows 10s. And after customers tried this and they were happy and they were satisfied, they came back to us and made requests for a few more policies. And we've added functionality for those policies in RS4 and RS5 as well. So one of the policies that customers asked us for was an ability for an admin to remotely unlock the device, which is fine. Doesn't really speak to my previous point. But the next policy that they asked us was really promising. They asked us for the IT administrator to actually block end users from unlocking the device, which really now gives the IT administrator the control on the security of their environment, because now they are running Windows 10s devices in their environment, and they're truly locking the device in S mode to minimize the attack surface space and make sure that the productivity of the user and the experiences of the user are not compromised. So these were additional platform enhancements we made in this round. Moving on to more platform updates that are scenario-based. Privacy is big on everyone's mind. Privacy compliance has been made easy progressively, release after release after release in Windows as well. As you might be familiar, in RS4, we released the ability for an end user to override the IT policy around telemetry. So an IT administrator can remotely set the level of telemetry that's collected, but an end user can go and change that level, change it from advanced to basic, and make sure that they are comfortable with the data that is being collected back either by Microsoft or by their own company. So telemetry levels are now end-user controlled. Also, zero-day exhaust policies. There are policies in place that were supported by GP that are now supported by MDM to make sure that the devices are not exhausting data that they're not comfortable exhausting back to Microsoft. So those have been wired in. The next scenario that we truly are supporting, and there is a whole dedicated session on this as well by Ariel Netz and Kelly, which you should attend. This is a session that's going to happen tomorrow. But it talks about the power of kiosk devices and how kiosk devices can be used and set up and managed by IT administrators for first-line workers, for shared cases, for signage devices, and so on. So to help the end-to-end scenario work, there is a lot that went into the platform in terms of core platform capabilities. For example, multi-app support for kiosks. There are scenarios where customers require just one app to work in a lockdown kiosk mode, but then there are customers, especially schools, that require multiple apps to run in a lockdown kiosk mode. So there was platform capability added for that. There was platform capability, again, added for fast logon, which is super important. You can imagine a shared device being used by two students side by side, and if logging into that device took 5 minutes of their time, what real benefit would technology offer when they really needed it? So fast login was of paramount importance when it came to shared devices and kiosk-style devices, and we worked on that and delivered on that. App update policies, again, you can imagine apps are constantly getting updated on the device, and sometimes app updates causes disruption. It might cause a reboot. So we've, in the platform itself, built the capability to receive app updates in a way where it's not disruptive to the end user. And if there are any reboots, they are all delayed to a later time. That way, the experience of the end user while in that app and while in that kiosk mode is not hampered, which ties to the reboot notification piece that we've wired into the platform as well. And last but not the least, it's the kiosk browser policies. We have tons of customers in the kiosk space that love using their web apps. They don't want to build rich apps that run on the client through the store or even Win32 apps. These customers want an easy web experience and lock down the web so that they can render their app in the web view. There were a lot of, so first of all, we released a kiosk web browser in the store that can facilitate this scenario. And there are a bunch of policies that we introduced in RS4 and RS5 for this browser management. For example, default URLs on the, on the browser. When you go to a kiosk in Home Depot, for example, what you see rendered over there is a web app, which is a default URL, and then you can start browsing on that app to view catalog and so on. So default URL can be configured by the IT Pro. Allowed URLs, blocked URLs can be configured by the IT Pro. Also, IT Pro can enable or disable the help, the home button and the navigation buttons. There are, again, you can imagine scenarios where no navigation is needed, but there might be scenarios where navigation is needed and so on. And then also IT Pro control to restart the app after a certain idle time. You can imagine your kiosk scenario at the airport. You're in the middle of checking in to your, into your flight, and at one point you just left the app without really signing out. You want that app to reset and be ready for the next user that walks over to the kiosk. So all these are configurable IT knobs that got added to the platform. Some additional improvements. There are touch keypad policies that we added in RS4, some remote management capabilities, and some new update policies in RS5. So that really completes the main updates that are coming in the platform that have come in RS4 and are coming in RS5 that I wanted to cover. But having said that, there is also tooling updates. So how many people here are familiar with the MMAT tool, the MDM migration tool? Great. So the intention of this tool is to really help IT organizations figure out the mapping between GP and MDM, right? It's a discovery process. Had we known all the pieces to the puzzle, we would have solved it many, many years ago. But as we are solving the pieces to the puzzle, we are also finding more pieces that we don't know of. So this tool is a tool that can be used to go look into your GP-based footprint and understand which policies are really set. And I'll show you a quick example of the report that gets generated by this tool. But this tool has been out for several releases now, and some of you have been using it. I encourage more and more people to use it, because this tool is quite nifty. It not only gives you the differences and calls out what is supported in MDM and what is not, which is not only good for us, because we get to understand the gaps, but it's good for you, because you get to learn about all the crazy GPs that are set in your environment. And it also has an easy way to send all that information back to us in an anonymized fashion. So it makes knowledge sharing very, very easy. We are updating the data dictionary of the MMAT tool with RS5 capabilities. That way you will be able to assess your GP readiness or your settings readiness with respect to RS5. So that work is happening right now. And we've also added 2 new columns based on feedback, which is MDM CSP setting URI. That way you know which URI or which setting you need to use for an equivalent GP, and the Windows OS version in which that setting was released. And with that, let me switch over again and show you real quick. When you click on the aka.ms/mmat, you land on this GitHub site, which has the entire tool. And this version is not the RS5 version. So this is the live version, which maps to RS4. And you can easily go in here and download the file. So I already have this downloaded and opened on my local machine. And there is a README doc in here that tells you how to install this tool and how to run this tool. It is not a GUI-based tool yet. We are trying to keep our engineering efforts minimum to get the most bang for the buck. This is not where we want to spend all of our time. So it is a command line-based tool, which I'm sure all of you can use very easily. But once you run this tool, what it does is it generates a report. And this is the view of a report on one of the machines that are domain joined at Microsoft. So what you would see here is that there are a bunch of settings that are green in the green table, which means that they have parity with the MDM knobs. And this is the URI of the MDM. This is the OS version when it was released, and so on. And you can also just choose which settings you want to provide feedback on in line. That way, we get very, very crisp on receiving feedback for specifics and not just a generic sort of, oh, these settings are missing. We can look into specifics of what's missing and what needs to be addressed. And then anything that does not have parity is flagged in a nice red box. So you can quickly review this and see if these settings really make sense in the modern world. Are these settings that you can, for hygiene's sake, just get rid of, or are these really important for your business? So you can really hone in on this section and do some more strategic thinking and some more cleaning style exercise. And then we also take an inventory of the ADMX back settings on the device. And as you're familiar, there are Win32 application management scenarios that are backed by ADMX style. So you can get an inventory on those settings as well, not just the OS settings. And then you can easily send feedback on all of these settings back to us using this tool. So right here, there is a button that says Generate Report for Microsoft. So whatever you've chosen in your list, those specific items will come back to us in an anonymized way, and we can then look at that data and figure out where to make our next set of investments. So we're very, very data-driven from that point of view. OK. With that, I highly encourage you to go and listen in on the sessions that tie the whole end-to-end story of device management, device security, the promise of cloud, the promise of M365. And this is like a short list of all the sessions that you can go to. Again, some of them have already happened yesterday. You can go revisit the recording, and some of them are happening today, tomorrow, and Friday. So with that, the key takeaways, I want you to leave this room with 3 key takeaways. Co-management of devices can get you the cloud value that you're looking for today. You don't have to wait for it. The MDM platform is more ready than you think it is. And you should really look at it from a scenario perspective and from a business need perspective versus just numerically trying to compare the old capabilities with the new capabilities. And last but not the least, MDM security baselines is here, finally, and will be available to all vendors to integrate into their systems. And my call to action really is to turn on co-management today. Work with your security experts on vetting the MDM security baseline. It's going to be available mid-October. If you see any concerns with it, please get back to us. Please provide us feedback. And also, I highly encourage you to use the MMAT tool, which will span not just the security settings, but beyond that, to give us feedback on the rest of the settings. So keep providing the awesome feedback you have been doing, and help us help you do your job better. Thank you.